If you're into your scary stuff, then films and games just aren't going to cut it to get your constant horror fix. Sometimes a serial installment is the only way to keep your fright topped up as the months roll on and you're waiting for the big releases. But the best horror TV shows out there aren't always easy to process on your own. Whether it's for their visceral, terrifying visuals, or narratives that will keep you up well into the night, or simply for their sheer, big, dumb, spooky fun they offer that's best to be experienced in a group. These are the TV shows that make the house a little bit bigger and darker when you're home alone, that make weird noises coming from the pipes turn into snarling monsters, and transform simple silhouettes into hidden serial killers. Hey, you've been warned, so watch at your own peril. And if you don't have someone to watch with, well crap, you're just gonna have to lose your mind then, aren't you? And yes, Gary, we know you've watched all of these alone and been all the better for it, but just remember it is all in the name of fun. Live a little, guys, and just buy into my dumb gimmick. I am your TV tag team partner, Ash from What Culture, and these are 10 TV shows you should never watch alone. 10. The X-Files. Now, yes, this isn't going to scare your pants off clean into outer space, but let's be real here. The prospect of there being other strange life forms in the universe is almost as terrifying as there being none at all. Truthfully, the best days of the X-Files are long behind it, but the classic seasons are still something special. Following FBI agents Mulder and Scully as they look for the truth about alien life and more, it blended police procedural with science fiction and horror in a seemingly effortless fashion. What makes the X-Files such an enduring, creepy journey is the constant feeling that something is out there. It tugs at every paranoid theory that lives in the back of your mind, genuinely making you ask yourself what is fact and what is fiction in the series. The underlying premise of the show is that the government is hiding the truth from people. That is something that nags at even the most sane person. And top it all off with season 4's Home, and you've got yourself a recipe for a sleepless night. 9. Twin Peaks. Trying to describe Twin Peaks is impossible in a few words. It's this strange mixture of camp, a detective story, and a little of the supernatural that defies convention. The strange tone of the first season caught fans off guard and drew them in immediately. Unfortunately, season 2 lost them and it was cancelled quite quickly. But that first season made an incredible, lasting impression on not only viewers, but on pop culture as a whole. It entered the lexicon of TV, a permanent fixture in the zeitgeist. It endured so powerfully that a third season was finally made decades later. If you have never seen the first season of Twin Peaks, prepare yourself for something that will stick with you. It will unnerve you, but you won't be able to look away. And if you think you can watch this one on your own, when you're bursting with theories and speculation that no one is around for, and desperately trying to tell your cat who you think killed Laura Palmer, you'll think back to this video and sigh. Old Ash knows the way of things, dear watchers. Never forget. 8. Bates Motel. The undisputed king of psychological thrillers and understated horror is Alfred Hitchcock. His greatest masterpiece, or at least his most famous, is Psycho, which serves as the basis for the Bates Motel. A modern prequel to Psycho, it tells the story of a young Norman Bates and his mother Norma as they operate a motel after the death of Norman's father. The series shows viewers the growth of a killer as his mental illness worsens, and he moves closer and closer to his destiny. The final season is a loose adaptation of Hitchcock's film, a place viewers knew Norman would end up in. Bates Motel was an incredible series filled with tension and highly menacing moments. It was a worthy take on the King's work, which could have easily gone the opposite way. 7. Black Mirror. Black Mirror is generally defined as a science fiction anthology series, but there are a lot of subgenres you can tuck it into. It has a healthy dose of satire, a sprinkling of psychological thriller, and just enough dystopian bleakness to make it interesting. And within that, there is the thickest vein of the horrors of technology that runs fat and juicy down the middle. The primary focus of the series is, of course, the consequences of technology running rampant on the world, either in the near future or an alternate present. And if you hadn't guessed yet, it is rarely a good consequence. Because of this, the series is more than a little ominous. It's based on legit concerns many people have about our increasing dependence on technology with little oversight. Black Mirror has received intense critical acclaim for the high quality of the series and developed cult following that just kept growing, making it perfect fodder for a little group viewing of some seriously intensive television. If you all feel like feeling miserable and hollow for a few hours at least, what group fun to be had. 6. The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone is the anthology series to end all anthology series. It is an amazing mix of fantasy, horror, science fiction, and psychological thriller. It's one of the most suspenseful, disconcerting, and stressing series ever created. While it keeps getting remade and rebooted, the original still holds up today. The brilliance of the Twilight Zone is that it could literally throw so many different characters and stories at you. When you tune into an episode, there's potential for pretty much anything to happen. Any type of story is on the table, as is virtually any twist in it. It's the fear of the unknown distilled into something potent and wonderful and truly scary. If the one you watch today doesn't freak you out, then the next one will. The Twilight Zone will get to you one way or another. 5. Hannibal. Considering the legacy of Silence of the Lambs as one of the most critically acclaimed horror-leaning movies out there, something good had to come from the TV adaptation of the same source material. Fans needed something excellent to remind them of the true terror in Hannibal the Cannibal. The Hannibal TV series, then, is an excellent retread of those beautiful, meticulous steps taken in Silence of the Lambs, ramped up to 11 and spun out into a psychological smorgasbord of tension. It is the most stylish thing you'll ever watch on TV, turning human insides into genuinely enticing meals as Hannibal prepares his dishes with the utmost care and attention. Slowly, you'll find yourself sucked into a mystery and a downwards troubling cycle of mind-melting proportions. Horror comes in thick waves, whether in visual form or in its depraved narrative, making for an unsettling journey to places you really don't want to go. 4. The Haunting of Hill House. Netflix's series that explores one family's struggle with their past, The Haunting of Hill House is a phenomenon in its own right. Perfectly executing classic horror tropes and mixing in a whole batch of its own inventive takes, the series is a modern redo of a classic story, proving director Mike Flanagan's eye for horror in delicious detail. When a family that grew up in the nation's most famous haunted house are struck with tragedy in their adult lives, they return to the house they grew up in to unravel the ghosts of their past. Unfortunately, those ghosts are quite literal too. If anything proves just how expertly crafted this series is, then the hidden figures, ghosts, and paranormal parts throughout each episode that shows Hill House are definitely top of the list. When you think you're watching TV, it is watching you right back, making for an Easter egg hunt ripe for rewatching, as well as a heartbreaking, terrifying story. 3. Channel Zero. If you don't know what creepypastas are, then you're about to. They're horror images and legends that have been passed prolifically around the internet. Sometimes, like Slender Man, they gain a life of their own and cause problems in the real world, with each of its 4 seasons drawing inspiration from different creepypastas. It is designed to be creepy, of course, unsettling, and sometimes outright frightening. And the series is pretty much successful on all of its counts on a regular basis. This is a particularly frightening series because it could hit you with anything at any time. It keeps you off balance, but always leaves you wanting more. Sci-Fi cancelled Channel Zero after 4 seasons, frustratingly, but it's the kind of series that could always come back for another round since creepypastas are still going strong as ever. If there's anything that takes hold like Butcher's Block, aka the Search and Rescue Woods series online, you can be sure someone will want to take it and spin it into another vividly weird adventure. 2. Penny Dreadful. The world was not good enough for a show as great as Penny Dreadful. With the title born from an old reference, Penny Dreadfuls were pulp 19th century British publications that covered sensational topics. As a series, Penny Dreadful drew not just its name, but its content and tone from those stories, as well as far more familiar ones from horror canon too. Set in Victorian-era London, there were several characters from public domain Gothic fiction. Dorian Gray, Mina Harker, Count Dracula. That should give you an idea of the type of show you're watching. It was dark, brooding, and often scary, but it was always a superb show. Critics got behind it, as did some die-hard fans, but it never got quite the mainstream support it deserved. Then again, it wasn't really a mainstream show. What we got with Penny Dreadful worked perfectly, and it avoided bloat for the sake of it by the time the ending rolled around. 1. American Horror Story. American Horror Story is an anthology series on FX that switches the setting, story, and characters each season. One season you're dealing with a haunted summer camp, the next is a coven of witches or an insane asylum. It could also be a hotel filled with vampires managed by Lady Gaga, if you're lucky. Whatever, whenever, or wherever American Horror Story is set, you can guarantee that it is going to be super creepy and more than a little weird. Ryan Murphy has created something in American Horror Story where literally anything is possible and it will make sense. A combination of creativity, great writing, and brilliant casting. But the reality is, with a name like American Horror Story, it is definitely a scary show. Each episode leaves you in a dark place, with the season-ending episodes even more so. This is one of those shows that as soon as you think you know everything, you realise you know nothing. It is psychosexual horror and upsetting extremism covered in pop culture goodness.